Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. It's a big day, the day after the Giants signed Kenny Golladay, wide receiver 1 from the Detroit Lions. I'm super excited. Anthony's super excited. The entire Giants fan base is in harmony for the first time in, I think, since I've joined Twitter or joined social media for the Giants platform. I don't think I've ever seen so many Giants fans get along for this amount of time. And now, we're looking at Adoree Jackson as another option for the Giants. He's a cornerback from the Tennessee Titans. They surprisingly cut him, and the Giants are now intrigued by him. They're bringing him in on Sunday night. We'll see, how those meetings go along. I think they're going to go just fine because, as we know, Jabril Peppers played a big role in signing Kenny Golladay, and now he's already recruiting Adoree Jackson, who is an absolute monster of an athlete. The guy is incredible. He was one of the highest rated coverage corners in 2019. He only played in 3 games last year, really only 2 full games, and he struggled a lot. So I think he could probably come here on a one-year, $6.56 million deal. As we saw, Pro Bowl cornerback Kyle Fuller got 1 year, $9.5 million. So Adoree Jackson coming off an injury-riddled season and really only played 11 games in 2019 too. He's not going to make nearly as much as that, so I'm saying $6.5 million, which would be an absolute steal for a player of his magnitude. And it would make the Giants secondary one of the top in the league. But the question is, where's all this money coming from? We want to break down some of this cap space situation for you guys and where they could probably open up a bit more money. What is it looking like right now? What does our cap health look like? But before we do that, Anthony, my friend, how are you doing and how are you feeling after the big Kenny Golladay signing?
I'm doing great. I'm over the moon. That's how I feel. I'm ecstatic. I can't believe, I can believe, but I also can't believe that it actually happened. I had my doubts for a little bit there. I've always been pretty confident. I even said back in October, this was my prediction. I think the Giants end up signing Kenny Golladay in free agency once they failed to trade for him back in October. I know there was a little bit of drama with how he left Detroit. There was a little bit of questions about his hip injury. Whatever, it's a no-brainer. You can get your wide receiver 1 in free agency. You go ahead and do it. The Giants have now opened up endless possibilities of what they can do in the NFL draft. They've set themselves up to a point where they can build through the draft now that they've supplemented this one positional weakness that they had at wide receiver 1. Now they can build through the draft, create a really solid young football team with a bright future because of this Kenny Golladay signing. They can go any route that they want in the draft now. They can do anything. They can trade down. They can take an offensive lineman. They can take a defender. They can really do anything. They're not pigeonholed or forced into getting a wide receiver or offensive playmaker. But even if they want to do that, they absolutely can. They can just stack up on playmakers. Again, endless possibilities. That is so exciting. And honestly, bold prediction, I'm just going to say it flat out. I think that the Giants are going to land Adoree Jackson. I don't see him going to Philadelphia. I think that the Giants players are recruiting really hard for Adoree Jackson already. I think there's 2 things I got to say to that. One, the Giants players recruited really hard to get Kenny Golladay. The Giants management listened to that, said, okay, let's get him. The other thing, Giants fans recruited really hard to get Kenny Golladay. Giants management reportedly heard that. They heard that the fans really wanted Kenny Golladay, and they got it done. They heard the fans on this one was the report. So, Giants fans, you're also going crazy again for Adoree Jackson. You're recruiting really hard for Adoree Jackson. The Giants players are again recruiting really hard for Adoree Jackson. Management's going to take note of that once again. And if they can fit it under the cap space, which they absolutely can, I think they're going to get it done. And this is going to fill another huge need. This is going to get CB2 checked off the list. We can get even more flexibility going into the draft. Of course, you could still draft a corner, build one of the best secondaries in the NFL, but you can also just start addressing other positions of need once you fill out these holes in free agency. Dave Gettleman said this once before. Free agency is to set you up for the draft. The Giants are perfectly setting themselves up for the draft with this free agency period, especially if they do end up landing Adoree Jackson. I think he's going to come pretty cheap. I think it's at max going to be about $6 million on a 1-year deal. A 1-year deal with a lot of incentives because this is a guy coming off of a season-ending injury last season, struggled in those games that he played, has missed 21 of his, or has played in 3 of his last 21 games. So he's got a lot of question marks, but realistically, I think you get him on a 1-year deal, you put him opposite of James Bradbury, now he's going up against cornerback 2s or wide receiver 2s, and you put him in Patrick Graham's defensive scheme where everybody just seems to be thriving. I think you're looking at potentially finding Adoree Jackson on a cheap incentive-laden contract and having him have a career turnaround and become a really solid cornerback for the Giants if they're able to pull it off.
Yeah, and they can put him in that secondary role alongside James Bradbury. Upgrading from Isaac Yiadom to Adoree Jackson is like it's unbelievable. That's ridiculous. This free agency has really played out well for the Giants for a couple of reasons. The first one is they desperately need a CB2, and they're coming cheap this year. There's a ton of free agent cornerbacks on the market that are going to be scooped up for cheap because of the COVID cap situation. So that only benefits the Giants because they don't have a ton of money to spend after the Kenny Golladay situation and signing. So I think, this really opens it up for a guy like Adoree Jackson to sign a pretty cheap one-year deal. And then having a wide receiver one hit free agency, that rarely ever happens. Historically, it never happens. And the Detroit Lions, they cut bait. I don't really know why they did it or what the reasoning was. Obviously, they had some intel that maybe forced them to go a different direction. But for the most part, it only benefited the Giants. This free agency period worked out perfectly for Big Blue, and they took advantage of it. They didn't let it go by them. They were like, we need a wide receiver one. If we draft a guy, we don't know if he'll be that impact player from day one. We know Kenny Golladay will be an impact player from day one. So they really, really did a great job in free agency so far. But the question is, where is all this money coming from? Let's get into some cap situations right now, what it looks like and how much money the Giants really have. So let's go through Kenny Galladay's contract really quickly before we dive into what the Giants cap space looks like. So Kenny Galladay's contract terms, 4 years, $72 million with $40 million guaranteed, including a $17 million signing bonus. There's a void fifth year to spread out the cap, which is exactly what the Saints are doing, like kind of with Hill and giving him this massive deal and just voiding all the years pretty much to spread out the cap, but keep his his price low. So the idea is 2021. His cap hit, Kenny Galladay's cap hit, somehow they managed to pull this off, is only $4.5 million. That's ridiculous. He's making an average of $18 million per season, and his cap hit for 2021 is $4.5 million. It's $1 million salary, $3.4 million in a signing bonus, and $250K per game bonus. 2021, he has a $21.15 million cap hit, $13 million salary, $3.4 million signing bonus, $4.5 million roster bonus, and $250K workout bonus. It's very similar for 2023 and 2024, but the dead cap goes down sporadically. So you'll see it'll go down as the contract wears on, but at the same time, this is a contract that I compare very similar to Odell Beckham Jr.'s in 2019. And I'll tell you why. They're both averaging $18 million per season. Obviously, OBJ signed a 5-year contract, whereas Kenny Golladay signed a 4-year contract. But what I like about it is that they signed a 2019 wide receiver value contract, not a 2021. So what that means is that when the TV deals come into play and they start to really affect this cap, and it's going to be significant, we're talking the owners are making $300 million in revenue. These deals are stupendous. They're massive. When 2023 comes around, the cap is going to skyrocket, and it's going to make this deal look like a plebeian deal. That's kind of where this is going. And why this is a good contract now, because I signed a 2019 value wide receiver deal when the cap in 2023 is going to be so much higher. The receivers are going to be getting paid. Top receivers like Kenny Golladay will be getting paid $25 million per season. They'll be getting them at cost. So I'm really excited about this deal because it actually is really good. They just wanted to get him a lot of guaranteed money, so I think they did a good job of that. And the potential is there. He's coming off his rookie contract. This isn't a third contract right now. This is coming off your rookie deal. He's super young, really, really talented, and he fits our scheme to perfection. And he's going to help Daniel Jones a ton. Anthony, I'll let you give your take on this cap situation, really, when it comes to Kenny Galladay's structured contract and what you think of it moving forward.
I'm so thoroughly impressed with what Dave Gettleman and Kevin Abrams did with the Kenny Golladay contract. Thoroughly impressed. The fact that they were able to get the 2021 cap hit down to $4.5 million is A, super impressive, B, it was necessary, C, it was something that I did not expect them to actually be able to pull off because, I've had my gripes with the way that the Giants have structured contracts in the past. I've even had gripes with the way they've structured one or two contracts this offseason. I look at the Devontae Booker contract and not a big fan of that one. Totally moved on. I don't care anymore. Whatever. We got Kenny Golladay, right? That cured everything. So when I look at this, the $17 million signing bonus is obviously what made that possible for the Giants to get that cap hit really low for Kenny Golladay in 2021. But this is not just the Kenny Golladay deal that they did really an impressive job with, right? Kevin Abrams and Dave Gettleman, kudos, hats off, credit where credit is due. They killed the contracts in this offseason period. So when you look at Jordan Rannon's tweet today and you see the projected cap hits for 2021, these are all the free agents The highest cap hit of all the free agents that we have is Kyle Rudolph with a $4.75 million cap hit this season. Then it's Kenny Golladay at 4.5, Austin Jackson at $3 million, Devontae Booker 2.5, John Ross 1.8, and both Mike Lennon and Reggie Ragland are only $988,000 on their cap hits. So the Giants really did not spend much money in this offseason period on free agents, but somehow they got two offensive playmakers and a lot of depth pieces, a lot of impact players, a lot of really good signings, but they did it at cost-efficient prices. Very, very impressive stuff. They absolutely killed it, and they really set themselves up for a very bright future with their salary cap situation, especially, as you mentioned, Alex, those new TV deals. We're going to see a lot more cap space in those future years, hopefully. You know, anything can happen, anything can change, but the idea is, and what most NFL sources are projecting, that salary cap is going to rise exponentially year after year, going from 2022 to like 2025. It's just going to keep rising and rising and rising. So that's exciting. Like Alex mentioned, this Kenny Golladay contract right now, some people wanted to say maybe it's an overpay. Some people want to say maybe they gave him too much money. No, it's going to look like a steal in a few years. It's going to, as long as he plays up to his contract, he plays up to where we expect him to, it is going to look like a steal. It is an excellent deal. I'm very impressed. Hats off to management. I think they just knocked it out of the park with this one.
I concur. They did a really, really great job, and they really vetted him very, very efficiently. They brought him in, they made sure that they got their vision across. Daniel Jones even reached out to Kenny Golladay to say, we're trying to do something special here. You're a very talented guy. We need you. And Kenny Golladay was sold. He said one of the biggest factors that played a part in his signing was actually the players that reached out to him and tried to recruit him. That meant a lot to him, and it showed how dedicated they were to this team. And it really is a testament to Joe Judge and what he's instilled in these players in terms of confidence and just being ready and wanting to win, wanting to make this something special. And I think they've all bought in. Kenny Golladay obviously bought in, and Joe Judge really liked him. So that's a huge benefit. I think this is going to be an entirely different offense. Kenny Golladay listened to Jason Garrett and Joe Judge and said, I loved their vision for the offense. If he watched our film from last year and he heard how many just hooks and curls and this and that we ran, he'd probably be like, I don't want to be in that offense. But obviously they were like, we're changing things dramatically, and it's going to be starting with you and being a more downfield based offense and really opening you up to maximize your potential. And I think that's what sold him, and that's why we should expect to see massive differences next season. Obviously Saquon coming back is a big selling point. But let's dive into some other cap numbers. Right now the Giants, per over the cap, have about $7 million in cap space, but I don't even think that's including Kenny Galladay's deal just yet. So what I will say is that we probably have around $3 million in cap space available, maybe $3.5 million in cap space. And with that being said, this is not much to work with because you still have to have money for your draft selections. But there's ways that you can open up more cap. You could extend Jabril Peppers. You could extend him. You could extend Evan Ingram. I know I'm going to get plastered for that, but you could do that. You could trade Evan Ingram, which would take $6 million off the cap. So you could either extend Jabril, you could trade Evan Ingram, or you could restructure James Bradbury, who's set to count $17.25 million this upcoming season. You could restructure that, put it into his signing bonus, and spread it out over the next 2 years of his contract. You could even add an extra year to his contract, and then give him a signing bonus, and then spread it out over 3 more years. So you could do things like that to open up a significant amount of cap space. And they need about $6 million to sign Adoree Jackson, but there is incentive to sign him to 2 years. Like, Anthony, do you think that the Giants would consider signing Adoree Jackson to 2 years? Because they could say, let's sign him to a 2-year, 16, or let's say 2 years, $18 million. And we'll just push the majority of it to next season, take on maybe a $4-5 million cap hit this year. They're doing a lot of pushing to next year, which could end up biting them in the butt, but they can always restructure, and the cap's expected to go up, so they'll have a little bit more money to use. And that's kind of how I see things. Right now, they have ways that they can maneuver. They can restructure James Bradbury. They can restructure Blake Martinez. One player that I do think is going to be cut next year is Sterling Shepard, unfortunately, because his cap hit, they have an out after the 2021 season, and he only counts, he only counts a very, very minimal amount in terms of dead money, and I'll tell you what it is right now. So after this season, he'll only count $4 million in dead cap. Otherwise, he would have a $10.5 million cap hit. So they would save $6.5 million by cutting him. I think they'll probably end up letting him go because the Giants are probably going to find a receiver in the draft. This is such a deep class. Whether it's Jalen Waddle, it's possible. Anthony, what do you think about that?
All right, you asked me multiple questions. Which one you want me to hit on first? The Adoree Jackson?
Hit on Adoree Jackson, then go to Sterling.
Okay, Adoree Jackson, 2-year deal. I actually don't think that's very likely. I think just because he's coming off of this injury-riddled season, I think it's going to be a 1-year deal with a low cap hit and a very incentive-based contract. I think that's really what we're going to see realistically. I know he's young and he's talented, and he really probably, if he didn't have the injuries, he'd get a multi-year deal. If he didn't have the injuries, he probably wouldn't have been cut by the Tennessee Titans, right? And he's got the age to where you can put him on a long-term deal. But these injuries, these question marks, it's just going to be a lot. The Giants are probably not going to feel comfortable putting him on a long-term deal. Plus, a lot of the contracts that they signed this offseason were 1-year deals. I know Kyle Rudolph was a 2-year deal. Kenny Golladay, of course, was a long-term 4-year deal. But pretty much the rest of them were 1-year deals. Mike Glennon, Reggie Ragland, they signed a lot of 1-year deals this offseason. And I think that with Adoree Jackson, I think who you can compare him to is Jason Verrett, right? He played with the San Francisco 49ers. He was with the Chargers, really solid player, made the Pro Bowl, injured for 3 years straight, right? Injury. Finally comes back, is healthy, signs a 1-year deal, plays phenomenally, gets another contract after that. That's what you're looking at with Adoree Jackson. You want him to sign a 1-year deal, prove he can stay healthy, prove he can be a solid player in your defensive scheme. You don't want to commit to him. You have no idea how he'll play in your scheme. You have no idea if he'll stay healthy. Don't want to commit long-term. Just sign him to that 1-year deal. And then if he does play up to or exceeds your expectations next year, that's when you give him his long-term contract. Let him earn it. He's got to prove himself, And I absolutely think he will. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, I think that he's a guy who's going to have a career turnaround if he is to sign with the New York Giants. So that's what I want to see them do, a 1-year deal. Plus, that also gives them flexibility. You sign him to a 1-year deal. If he's playing really, really well midseason, you can extend him midseason, make it a 2-year deal. You could say, all right, let's give you an extra year on this deal. We want to see another year of your play. You could do that, or you can extend him in the offseason once he proves that he stays fully healthy for 16 games. Give him the extension in the offseason. Or you could even do this. Let's say Adoree Jackson, out of nowhere, 1-year deal, ends up playing as a top 3 cornerback in the NFL, almost makes the all-pro team or even does, right? Let's say that were to happen. Franchise tag him. Then you can either trade him or you can do transition tag. You can do a lot there. You can get really, really flexible. So I just think the 1-year deal sets the Giants up really well for next offseason. If you want to look ahead to next year's offseason, and you want to look ahead to this year's draft class or next year's draft class, this year's draft class has a lot of cornerback talent. Even if the Giants sign Adoree Jackson, I expect them to draft a corner in one of those first 4 rounds for sure, just because there's so much talent out there. So I think a 1-year deal makes a lot of sense because you could potentially sign Adoree Jackson, draft a corner in the 3rd round, give it 1 year, Adoree balls out, you put him on the franchise tag, then you trade him, and then you have that 3rd round or 2nd round or even maybe 1st round corner that you drafted this year step up into that role and really start playing at high level as a starter there. So that's my thoughts on Adoree Jackson. I think a 1-year deal makes the most sense. Now I'll talk about Sterling Shepard. Sterling Shepard is really interesting. I've seen Sterling Shepard get a lot of criticism lately for being injury prone, for being, kind of playing a role that he shouldn't be playing because he's been playing on the outside. We just talked to his trainer. His trainer said that he's very comfortable playing anywhere, inside or outside, and I agree. I think that he plays really well in both spots. But when you talk about Sterling Shepard's future with the Giants, yeah, it does get a little murky because they do have a potential out next year where they only have $4 million in dead cap. They could free up over $6 million in cap space. So that's interesting, but that's only interesting if the Giants have a supplement for Sterling Shepard's talents, right? They have to replace him first. I like Sterling Shepard on a $10 million cap hit. I don't think that's an egregious overpay. I'm pretty sure Adam Humphries is getting $11 million per year, right? So I think that's a really solid number for a wide receiver too in the NFL, especially a premier. When Sterling Shepard's in the slot, statistically, he's been a premier slot receiver. I think that this is a pretty good deal for a premier slot receiver. I don't have any problems with paying him $10 million per year as long as he is staying healthy and continuing to play at the high level that he's been playing at. So I don't really want to cut him. I get the argument behind doing it next year, but my take on it is you're not really going to find this really solid, reliable wide receiver too and premier slot receiver like that without, paying that price tag. That is the going rate for players like Sterling Shepard. So I like the deal. The only way that I think you move on from him is if you draft somebody. So say the Giants draft a Jalen Waddle this year, then next year we can cut Sterling
Even
Shepard.
Devonta Smith, I throw in there too.
Yeah, no, whoever if we draft anybody at the wide receiver position within the first 2 rounds of this year's draft, knowing the talent that we get in those first 2 rounds in this year's draft class, then you're talking about moving on from Sterling Shepard and doing it without any problem. But for right now, current state of the team, I think Sterling Shepard still has a future here. I think there's a really, really good chance he plays out the entirety of his contract with the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally reasonable. And I think, what I liked about Kenny Golladay so much after watching his film, doing a little breakdown yesterday, is that he can align in the slot, in the Z and the X. So I really like his versatility. That's the pinnacle of a wide receiver one, is the versatility that you can bring, aside from just being a monster, catcher. But he is able to move to different spots and get creative. They can get creative with him and schematically. So I really like that about him. I'm really excited personally to see what they can do with this offense and really how they can get creative with it. The cap space, we're seeing the Giants take a little bit more of a modern approach in terms of, manipulating the cap space and being a little bit more modernized in their approach, because usually they kind of stick, like Gettleman said, they want to have flat contracts, but for the most part, they haven't really done that. A lot of them are one-year deals, so that is just irrelevant, doesn't matter. But Kenny Galladay's deals, they definitely offloaded a lot of that money. Same with Leonard Williams. I think together they're going to count $48 million in cap next year, which is a monster number. But with the cap going up, they should be okay. They still have a rookie quarterback. That's the thing. You spend money when your quarterback's on a rookie deal. They're finally getting that, and this is the 3rd year of Daniel Jones's contract. So I think they're this is the year we need to force a developmental leap from him. So I'm pretty excited to see what he can do in terms of taking his game to the next level because of these new assets and these players that we've gained. And the draft, this opens up the draft incredibly for the Giants. If they go out and get Adoree Jackson, you don't need to get Patrick Surtain or Caleb Farley. You can now shift your target toward a offensive lineman, or you can go with the best player available. You could go with a Jalen Waddle and completely make your wide receiver weakness one of the best in the NFL overnight. So that I'm totally okay with that. Double dipping a wide receiver, especially if it's a guy like Jalen Waddle, even Devonta Smith, would be incredible. I'm excited to see everything that they can do. So, we'll see what happens in the coming days, especially with Adoree Jackson meeting on Sunday. I'm pretty excited about that. But Anthony, do you have any last touching thoughts on the cap space? I actually do have one last thing I want to say. I saw somebody bring up the idea that, you could cut some of these lower level guys that aren't making that much money. Like, let's say, like Trent Harris, Montre Hardage, Joe Webb, this and that. And there is a thing going around that's saying you could cut these players and save, you could compound all this money that you're cutting from them and have enough to sign Adoree Jackson. That's not the case, because when the top 51 cutoff, if you cut guys above the top 51 cutoff, the guys below get pushed into that range, so you're making very incremental amounts, like $20K, $50K. And it's not going to add up to as much as you need for Adoree Jackson. If you want to get Adoree Jackson, you have to but you have to restructure contracts like James Bradbury's or Blake Martinez. That's how you do it.
Okay, yes, probably, I agree. But one thing that I'll say, what I've been trying to say with Adoree Jackson, this incentive-laden contract, if it's incentive-laden, you have the potential of this having a $2-3 million signing bonus, $1 million cap hit, and the rest is incentives. That's actually feasible. You could probably get that done. But the only thing is the Giants do need money to sign their draft picks. So, no matter what, they're going to have to make some moves, restructure a contract, do something. If they sign Adoree Jackson, they're going to have to do something to free up some cap space, more for the draft than for Adoree Jackson. So that's what they have to clear up cap space for, because you have to set yourself up. And we know that Dave Gettleman likes to have some emergency money going into the regular season just in case there's an injury or something happens. He likes to have a little bit of cap flexibility there as well. So, the Giants are going to have to make some moves to free up a little bit more cap space. They can't go over right now because they are actually in the new league year, so we cannot go over the cap right now. So they're going to make some moves. I'm not too worried about it. The Giants have been really, really smart with their salary cap situation this offseason from start to now. This isn't the finish, but they've been really good the whole time. So I think going forward, the Giants are going to make some moves. I kind of expect them to restructure somebody's contract. I know Dave Gettleman said he doesn't like to do that. It's kind of a given at this point that they're going to, right? They kind of have to. So I think they will. I think they might cut a couple of those lower name guys potentially, but not really, because it's just you want some depth on your roster going into the season. So realistically, I think they end up.
I know what they're going to do. They're going to sign Adoree Jackson, and they're going to cut Isaac Yiadom. That's what they're going to do. Isaac Yiadom has a $2.2 million cap hit with 0 dead cap. If you get Adoree Jackson, you cut Isaac Yiadom, and you roll that over into your incentive-laden contract.
Yeah, potentially that is a really solid option that they could do, but I do think that the Giants are a lot higher on Isaac Yiadom than we are as fans.
You still have Julian Love, though.
Really
Julian
like
Love
him
can
as a depth
do...
piece. I still think they look at Julian Love as a safety. I still think they view him that way. So I'm not good.
I don't know. I think Sam Beal coming back too.
It's a good, well, that's who they should cut. That guy, I mean, he can't.
Well, I don't know his dead money. His dead money.
I don't know.
Like
I don't know what his contract looks like.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it because you only save $500K when you're saving $2.2 million from Isaac Yiadom.
Well,
I can't imagine.
Would you rather rely on Isaac Yiadom as your depth corner, or would you rather rely on injury-prone Sam Beal? I'd rather rely on Isaac Yiadom. I think that. But you know what? We've got the draft. I'd rather rely on a drafted
or draft on
somebody than either of them.
Draft somebody.
Julian Love, I like as the safety utility role. I don't like him being this outside cornerback that everybody wants to put him in that, because I've seen that a lot. I don't think that's what he is. I think that he's a utility player. I think he works really well. He's physical, slot, strong safety. So, yeah, I don't think that he is the backup corner in this scenario. But, yeah.
I can see it.
Whatever. I think the Giants, they've got plenty of moves to make. They will make their moves. I think that they can easily get Adoree Jackson under the cap if they want to. If the meeting goes well, we'll see. We'll obviously update all of you on the meeting as we find out the news, and maybe we'll do a live stream to discuss it. Maybe as things heat up, we'll try and get it live. So try and get the live reaction to maybe an Adoree Jackson signing. I don't know. Hopefully he doesn't end up in Philly, though. That would piss me off. Hate Philly, but love the Giants. Hope he ends up over there. And yeah, Giants are really comfortable with their cap situation. Keep in mind they got to open up some cap for the draft, but all is well in Giants Nation right now. We can all be very happy, rejoice in the fact that we got Kenny Golladay, and we're still healthy enough in the salary cap to consider going after other free agents. That's awesome. Kudos. Hats off to Dave Gettleman and Kevin Abrams and Joe Judge and everybody in this front office. They've done an excellent job, and I'm over the moon.
Me too. I couldn't say any better. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Fireside Giants. Make sure to hit the subscribe button below on YouTube, and make sure to turn on notifications on Twitter, Spotify, and iTunes. Really, really appreciate all the support and love. Really great growth the last couple days, all because of you guys, so we really appreciate all the love. And, you know, we just came up with a really cool Kenny Golladay t-shirt. Go check that out on the website. I also posted it on Twitter. If you go like and retweet that, I'm going to give a free one away tonight. It's really cool, really awesome design by Danny. Of course, he comes through again with a creative style. So really excited about that. But as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Fireside Giants, and we will catch you guys on the next video.